All right. Good morning, folks. Hey, welcome to the J Golf Morning Show. Yeah, I changed the name of it. My wife rolls her eyes every time I think I want to change things up a little bit. She goes, "Oh my gosh, here we go again." But welcome to the J Golf Morning Show. And I'm excited to have our next guest with us. I've known him for many, many years. He's a fantastic leadership and influence, a father, grandfather, a husband. I mean, I don't know what this guy doesn't do that he's not great at. When his fingers touch it, somehow or another, it turns into gold. When I touch it, it turns into fool's gold. But I'm so glad to have my friend Dennis LaRue on with us today. So, hey, don't forget to subscribe on this page to I'm going to put the ticker on the bottom. The J Talk Morning Show. The J Golf. I did it again. J Golf Morning Show. All right. So that's what we got for you today. Let's get down here and let's kill the music, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And we're going to get started here with our friend, Coach LaRue. Coach Dennis LaRue. I almost gave you my first name. Here he goes. All right. There we go. Hey, Dennis.
What's going on, Jay? Great to be on the show. And I got to say something right off the bat.
Okay.
You got to listen to Mama. Mama rolls her eyes. What do you do and change? Oh man, you know this. You know the saying: if Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
That is so true. That is so true. You know, God bless her heart. She is an amazing woman, full of grace, more grace than I deserve. I'm going to be honest about that. That's not just rhetoric. That is, I have more grace from her than I probably deserve. But every once in a while, I can feel this invisible little poke in my rib that she loves to give sometimes. So hopefully we're coming through okay. I've got looks like a fairly weak signal here. So hopefully the recording will be fine. But we'll find out. So anyway, folks, if you're watching this right now live, welcome. Put your questions in the comments, and we're live on let's see. I don't know if I'm live or not because I'm recording. So I may not be live. Huh. See, I'm still new, folks. I'm new to this world. Okay. No worries. I've been broadcasting before, but that was a different story. And I'm cross-armed here too. I've got a mouse over here. I've got coffee over here, and I'm like everywhere. I need like 5 other hands. But folks, this podcast, the J Golf Morning Show, is where we're going to be interviewing people that are making a difference in the world. That's the biggest thing, is people that are doing something to make a difference and adding value to the lives of others. And probably you're going to hear something. Now, if you don't hear everything, you're going to hear something you're going to say, I need that. I need to use that. I need to apply that. I need to think about that and meditate on that. You're going to get something from this podcast. And with this particular podcast, you're going to get a whole lot of things. You know, the one thing I want to do with our podcast, with the J Golf Morning Show, I said it right that time, is lessons on life, lessons on leadership, and also we're going to laugh. It's the 3 L's: life, leadership, and laughter. And it's something that we live by in our own home here, actually, in the Golf Castle, Sir Goffalot. I'm Sir Goffalot of Goffalot Castle, and but we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, and I know that leadership. And if you've ever followed me for a while, especially on my previous social media that got HACKED, you can't spell it out. You can't say it because they start launching at you. I had to start all over again. I had to create a new Facebook profile, and all my pages are different. My business page, my entertainment page, everything had to be different. I had to start all over again. And it's pretty hard because a lot of people you can't remember you connected with. And when you try to connect with, the connection with them is a little harder now. Doesn't always connect with them. So I'm like, okay, well, but it gave me a great opportunity to really kind of weed out some folks. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we got to weed the garden, and so it does give me a chance. So there was the beauty of that and the highlight. And so, but enough about me. I want to get started with Dennis LaRue. And the first thing I want to bring up about Dennis is that monster coffee cup you just put up. That is huge, man. That's not a coffee cup. That's a trough.
This holds 4 beautiful, glorious cups of coffee. It says, inspire someone today. And on the inside, when I drink it, it says, enjoy life.
Amen to that. I love that. It's inspiring. Well, I do have a spiritual one. It's from Men at the Cross. I was attended a conference many years ago with Joe White, amazing gentleman he had this incredible thing where he would come across and he'd tell the story, but he's carrying an actual cross on his shoulders. The guy's like almost 80 years old, but he's doing it. Just inspiring.
May we have that strength at 80.
I'm working on it. I've been going to the gym lately, you know.
I have too. I've been out running the trails, building up the endurance.
Me too. Which, speaking of endurance, that's a great word. Let's let's talk about that in a few moments. First of all,
Sure.
let's just learn a little bit about you, Dennis. Tell us a little bit more about your history. Where you came from, where you're at today, and where you're going.
Wow. I mean, we got to compact a whole lot of life in a little space. I'm a native.
Do it in 20 seconds. No,
20-second native Pennsylvanian by birth. The only reason people have heard of where I lived in PA is thanks to The Office. I was in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre areas where I was born and lived. Most people don't know anything about it. Graduated high school there, but in between birth and high school, there was a gap where I lived in Arlington, Texas. If you know who the Dallas Cowboys are, the first house I lived in is underneath that parking lot in Jerry's World somewhere. No kidding. No, It's no longer there. I lived in Arlington, sandwiched between Pennsylvania. Graduated.
There you go.
Cowboys. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Folks, don't tune out yet, okay?
Hey, don't hate on me, please.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not one of those rose-petaled Cowboys that say Super Bowl every year. I'm realistic, okay?
Yeah, there we go.
After a year of college where, I was a cross-country track runner, ran well in college, but unfortunately I was running from class, not to class. And so my grades weren't great, but my running went very well. I mean, I was a decorated freshman runner in Division III. Moved back to Texas after my freshman year. That's where my parents moved to. Met my wife, joined the Air Force, served 23 years there. Got retired from the Air Force, got 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and now here I am coaching, teaching, facilitating, and just serving leaders in multiple ways. And the way that I do it is I work with successful leaders. But I find that most people are successful in only one piece of the pie on the Trivial Pursuit area. That's their career.
Yeah.
So I want to go back, when people leave work and they dread what happens after work, those are the people I want to work with, because leaders love people, not just the people they work with, but all people. And when you learn to love people and you live an enriched life, you get those two right, you're going to be successful in your career. But you can be successful in your career and not be successful beyond that.
Yeah, a while back I did a talk in a blog. I have to go back and see if I can find the blog and repurpose it now. But you brought that up. I called it the big L of leadership, right? The big L of leadership. And leadership, there are so many things that started with the letter L. Now, I don't know if you're like me and like John Maxwell. We like to alliterate everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm a total. In fact, I can do it just off my cuff, and my wife, she points it out every time.
Yeah.
But leaders, they don't just lead. Leaders love. Folks. If you don't have if you don't have the trait of empathy, if you don't have compassion, and if you don't have candor is a form of love. You have to be honest and upfront. You got to be candid, and you got to be compassionate. But leaders love. They don't just love what they do, okay? They don't just love the title. What they love more than anything is the people in their charge, the people that are responsible. Leaders love. Now, here's the thing, too. We talk about leadership as influence, right? John says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I say influence is legacy, right? Your influence is your legacy. But your leadership doesn't stop when you clock out. Leadership is self-leadership. That's what I focus a lot on, is self-leadership. Before you get to the 5 levels of leadership, there are 2 other levels of leadership: personal and peer.
That's good.
Right? And so I tagged on. In fact, I got a blog on that. I tagged on what John said. Because I had this tendency to listen to some incredible speakers and influencers and authors, and I said, yeah, but there's more. There's more to
Yes.
this. And so John speaks of in the 5 levels of leadership, starting from basically the corporate world. When you first get a job into a position of authority, you got the positional leadership.
Right.
That's leadership number 1, according to John. In my world, that's leadership level number 3. You got to lead yourself well. And then, are you a peer leader? Do others call you a leader? Anybody that walks around says, I'm a leader, and nobody else is echoing that, you're not a leader. Okay? You're not a leader. I almost had an Arnold Schwarzenegger moment there. Leader. You're a leader. Get out of the chopper. I love that commercial. I crack every time I see it.
I see memes of songs with him singing the song. Those are hysterical. They get me to the point where I'm almost asthmatic and need a blast of something. Yes. I'm laughing so hard.
Oh, they are so funny. So funny. But leaders, that's really loud in your ears when you tap that. Leaders learn to love their people. And if you don't have that quality of empathy and love for your people, then why are you in the position in the first place? I'll tell you why. You want to be a boss. You want to be a bully on supervisory status. You want to be the finger pointer. You want the prestige of power, not for the purpose of and passion of the people. And that's the difference. Yeah. And I can say this with absolute honesty and conviction and truth, is that Dennis is one of those types of leaders. Okay. Now, I'm not saying giving you multiple choice. Which one is he? Dennis is a leader who loves. I've followed you for several years now, Dennis. I've followed you and see your posts, and I've read your bio, and I can't wait to get the book too, to read the book, and we're going to talk about the book in a few moments.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of leadership we need in our nation, our nation. And leadership goes beyond the office, which was originally what I was going to lead to, is that it's not just in our professional environment, but in our personal environment. How am I leading my family? Mm-hmm. Dennis, one time I was speaking to a group of small business leaders, and I was telling them about the acronym BOSS, Bully on Supervisory Status. I was speaking about that and how to connect and communicate with their team members. But I said also, leadership doesn't stop, when you leave the office. It continues throughout your day and in your home. Mm-hmm. I said, are you a boss to your family members? This woman came up to me after the event, and she said, Jay, after your talk today, because I believe leadership is, and leadership is, it's all of ourselves, all of our life. It doesn't just go in a position. And so I always teach that. How do you lead professionally? How do you lead personally? And she says, Jay, after you shared that with us, she said, I realized not only was I a boss to my team, I've been a boss to my children.
Boom.
I've been a boss, a bully on supervisory status with my husband. She felt incredibly convicted by that. And that's why I came up with that, because I realized as a leadership instructor in the military, a senior leadership course instructor, as a leader, practitioner, student, and instructor, the way we treat others determines our credibility as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can lead 2, you can lead 1, you can lead 1,000. How you show up for all of them makes a difference. And I love how you, like on your tag, leaders love people and enjoy life. So love that.
Yeah. And
so
thoughts, couple things come to mind. You know what else a boss is? They're an M squared, micromanagers. They are M squared. So boss M squared.
Boss M square.
There's your mathematical formula.
You just one up to me. I appreciate that.
Just adding that right here.
I appreciate that. Well, that's what this is. This is what this is about too. It's collaboration. So, wow, how can we learn and grow from each other? Folks, I'm going to learn and grow from Dennis from this podcast as you will. And I hope that you take what he has to say to heart. And I think it's really going to make a difference. John had a thing he called ACT, ACT. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Apply, change, and teach, right?
Mhm.
Everything you sit down, you learn, you listen to. If you're listening to a podcast, you're reading a book, you're going to class, you're getting a briefing, or you're going to hear a speaker speak, ACT. And it stands for, and this is one of those things where I also said, yeah, but John, wait, there's more. All right, so I'll share the more part in just a moment. But John says, you need to apply it to your life.
Mhm.
What is it that you need to change? And then how can I teach this to others? And I believe on the other end of that, at the beginning of that is react. I call it react. Receive, right? And expect. Be
Yes.
prepared to receive and have an expectation of what you're going to grow and learn from and what you're going to do with it. What are you going to do with it? What's your reason for being here? People get on these calls sometimes to learn something. Okay, great. What's your initial intent of
Mhm.
listening to the calls or reading a book? What are you going to do with that? If you don't do anything with it, then you just wasted time. You've wasted your time. You may gain more knowledge, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, exactly. I call that LDR. You see LDR,
Mm-hmm.
that's the name of my brand. It's Leaders Develop Relationships. We love our acronyms. Leaders
Yes,
develop
sir.
relationships, but it also, in this case of ACT, it's learn it, do it, and relay it.
Yes,
Learn, do, repeat. Learn, do, relay.
exactly.
So good. That
Yeah.
is so good.
You
And
know,
I want to go back to that leadership for just one moment. You were
sure.
describing empathy and compassion and love, and we need all that. I throw that under the umbrella of servant leadership. And here's my definition of a servant leader. There's so many of them out there, but this is my
Yeah.
definition. A servant leader is this: a servant leader meets people where they are,
Mm-hmm.
loves them for who they are,
Ooh.
but doesn't leave them where they are.
Oh, come on. Come on. Oh, come
That
on. Okay, we could end
that's
the whole podcast on that. That is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. No. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Say that again. Say it again.
that's my definition. So a servant leader is a leader that meets you where you are, loves you for who you are, but doesn't leave you where you are.
Oh,
Now the first two of that, you can be a great servant leader and just stop at the first two. Meet people where they are and love them for who they are.
mm-hmm.
But the last one is a transformational servant leader, because when you engage that leader, you're transformed. Something happens. They don't leave you where they are. That doesn't mean they just grab you and pull you along. They either leave you something that changes you, leaves something for you to think about, or you're completely changed and you follow that leader beyond. But that interaction with that leader, you are not the same as a result of spending time with that leader.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay, that is okay. I am definitely going to go back and take notes on this. And review this. Dennis, that's like one of the best things I've heard in a long time. I mean, obviously that's in your book, right? Is that in your book? That's going
Actually,
to
it's
be in your
not.
next book.
This will be my next book, but I've been really pouring in on this because this is what's missing.
Yes,
This
it
is
is.
what is missing in leadership. It's missing at all levels, whether it's at home, in business, out in the community. I mean, politics, fill in the blank, all the
Yep.
spheres of influence that we're aware of.
Yep.
If we can do those three things, we're that's the transformation that we're looking for. That's the change that we're looking for. That's the unity, the peace. Uh, that's where we are enjoying life instead of enduring life.
Amen to that. Enjoying life instead of enduring life. And I think that's where a lot of us today are at. We're just enduring. You mentioned so many things, and folks, this is never going to be uh, uh, an objectional podcast. This is not going to be one where we get on and we talk about talk about politics. We're not going to
Right.
talk about, we're not going to talk about religion as far as like, pushing it on anybody, anything like that,
Mm-mm.
or political views. But the one thing I will say, and I think the majority of Americans would agree, the same as the majority of people around the world who are outside looking in, politically speaking, this is what we need. This is what we need. That kind of mindset, that kind of passion, that kind of conviction, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and leadership. And we've got to get back to that. We got to get back to that. And so, and so the wonderful thing is that there's men and women, like doing what you're doing what I'm doing, that's trying to make that difference. That's trying to really
Mm-hmm.
bring that to the world. And I think what you just said though is something that is, it's it's something we can all latch hold of. And I think what we need is the coaching and mentoring to get there. We need the
Yes.
coaching and mentoring to get there. Somebody with the wisdom, the understanding, the empathy. Leaders love. This is a sign of love right
Mm-hmm.
there. So I think that'll be a fantastic thing. So I can't wait to go back and re-listen to this and write those out. And yeah, that's great. And I can't wait to read your second book that you're going to be putting this in. I'm going to
That
highlight that.
it sounds like I've got about 3 or 4 now coming out. I've got a little
Yeah.
list of things that have popped out, and so
Yeah. Oh, I've got that too. I've got my Evernote that has all kinds of notes in it for books, and it's like,
mhm,
and it's funny because I've had some tell me, Jay, you need to write a book on this and speak on this.
mhm.
And there's one particular topic that they
Excuse
keep bringing up, and at first I thought, okay, well that'd be kind of cheesy, kind of corny.
me.
Uh, Katrina mentioned it, and then
Uh-oh.
yeah, she
Uh-oh.
mentioned.
Uh-oh, right there.
And then some others started mentioning it in the world that we are familiar with, mentors like John Griffin,
Yeah.
Jaru Thagal, Jaru.
Mhm.
Let's see, Christine Case. I don't know if you know Christine. I brought her onto the team a while ago, the Maxwell team, and some others. And I was in New York City at a big thing with them up there, and we did some amazing work up there. But this came out that for those of you who follow me know I do Elvis, right? I'm an entertainer as well as an entrepreneur, and I love leaders. So the two things I've been passionate about, and I've been working on this book, but the two things I'm passionate about that I have a love for is Elvis and leadership. Elvis and leadership. How can I combine those two? So I've started working on that. Oh, my friend Marie Cosgrove also was.
Yes, love Marie.
Yeah, she was also telling me, in fact, if I hadn't had my full-time job before that I'm retired from now, I had an opportunity to speak on stage with her and Les Brown down in Texas a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I can't get away from this day job. So,
Mm.
Marie, if you're watching, I'm available. I'm free. Okay. But yeah, and it was all about leadership and Elvis and the leadership principles using the Elvis. It's kind of funny, it's kind of corny, cheesy, but
Oh,
it's a book that I'm working on that, and I've used certain aspects of Elvis's life that exemplifies certain leadership qualities and philosophies. And so it'll be a practical book. Everything I do
mhm.
has to have some practicability to it, but
Right.
also a novelty book, especially for the big Elvis fans out there. But Elvis fans are going to read it and say, "Wow, I can use this. Hey, I want to be more like Elvis." Okay, now there's parts of Elvis's life that will not make the book. I'm just saying, without
Correct.
mentioning. Okay,
Right.
but that is one thing. One of my big book projects I've been working on, and I need to get my tail section in gear and get on that. But life.
I do. I've got some people I can point your way to help you in that area.
Mm. Well, I would definitely be interested in that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I mean, one of the things, we're both veterans, and by
Hmm.
the way, we both have experience in broadcasting.
Yes.
As veterans, I mean, here's what I picked up early in my military career was how how to do things and how not to do things, how to lead
Mhm.
and how not to lead. And I remember processing, this really works and I like that. I want to do that. I'm going to assimilate that. But then also, this is how I don't want to be. This is not what I want to do. This is not going to get the result that's in alignment with who I am. And so going back to Elvis, same thing. There are a lot of things about Elvis we're like, man, there are ways we want to say we all want to be like Elvis.
Mhm.
And there's other things we learned that if Elvis were here, he would say, "Hey, don't do this." Don't do
Exactly.
this. I mean, we pick those up later on, and we're all like that as leaders. I mean, we've all, John Maxwell said many times, you've heard him say it, his last book he's going to write is Leadership Sucks.
Yes, that's right. He did say that.
Because there's never 2 days in a row that it's the same, but there's just times when leadership sucks.
It does.
And those are the times that we learn what not to do, or we learn, boy, I wish I wouldn't have done this, or I learned a great lesson from this, but I wish I didn't learn it this way.
Right. And the greatest lessons many times come from the greatest challenges that we face,
Yes.
and that's the one thing I know and believe, that in our experiences, we've learned a lot about leadership, and I always liken it to, we see the things that we think would work. So we adopt that practice, we adopt that philosophy,
Yeah.
and principles, and we adapt them into our own leadership and into our own influence. And we're
Yes.
constantly doing that. We're constantly, oh, that works. That's great. I'm going to adopt that. I'm going to adapt it. Now, John's really good for doing that with his writing too. Oh man,
Yes.
that was good. I'm going to adopt what you say. I'm going to adapt it in my book, and I'll give you a mention, maybe. After the third time, forget about it. You know what John says. The first time you say, well, John Maxwell said. Second time you say, you remember this? Second time, what do you say if you come up with
Yeah.
something?
Yeah. He says, I'll give you credit, but I'm not giving you royalties.
Yeah, I'm not giving you royalties. I'm not giving you the royalties. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to get fast and write my book and quit sharing all this wisdom, But it serves nobody good if you don't share it, even if it's not in a book, because as influencers, it's not about what can I receive and keep for myself, but what do I possess, even by the influence of others, that I can share and give. And we want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference.
Right.
Put that in a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love is I love when I actually disagree with the people I'm reading.
Yes.
And the reason why is I'm thinking, I'm taking what I've learned, my experience, and say, you know what, I disagree with that. Here's why. Here's my thoughts. And you know what? That tells me, okay, I'm not just falling for everybody's bait, hook, line, and sinker. I'm not
Yes.
becoming I'm not becoming John Maxwell Jr., or I'm not becoming fill in the other authors behind me.
Right.
I'm discerning. I'm saying, I disagree with this. Why? Or I'm not seeing that point. There are sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 reads of a certain book to say, you know what? Now I get it. I'm just not at their level, but they cause me to think. Now, if I disagree completely and I have experienced why I disagree with that, that's even better, because now I've got a insight and wisdom that maybe they don't have. And I'm not, instant inflate big head here. We're not all the same. Every one of us has a unique message, a unique purpose. There's times when we're all in alignment, but there's certain people that you are placed here to reach that they cannot and will not. Like, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to stop your flow there. But John's books are amazing. And when I first learned about John Maxwell, it's when I was a senior leadership course instructor at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay.
Fellow instructor brought the book, The 21 Laws of Leadership, to me. And he said, Jay, you got to read this book. John's practices of leadership, his philosophies were basically, I was in alignment as a influencer and a leader and an instructor already. And John just articulated it in a way that was more corporate than military. And I was able to institute that in there. But when we talk about, like what you're talking about, finding the things that you don't agree with, I think what happens is we share our own experiences, and sometimes that's by verbally, sometimes it's written. And John's philosophies is because, one, he's been a leader forever. He's been an expert forever. He's had so many influencers and teachers, and he's the first one to say, I don't know it all. And he goes and he finds the people that does, and he gleans from them.
Yes.
But he only knows what he knows because He exposed himself to those particular environments. That became his experience, his exposures, and his education. And that's what he shares with the world. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we will read somebody else's material and we'll have say, okay, but wait, my experiences, my education, and my environment kind of contradicts that. And here's why. Now, yours worked for you, his worked
Yeah,
for him. It doesn't mean
exactly.
they're wrong, it
Right.
just means they're different. And
Yes.
how can they, and you brought up a key word, which I love this word, and I use it often, is alignment. People can be in alignment and not be in agreement. And we
True.
need more of that. In other words, what is the main goal here? What's the main purpose? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the result we want to achieve? Well, we can get there following one path, or sometimes you can get there following several paths.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is to get here. In the military, if the mission is to let's say, overcome a hill, and I'll speak as an Army guy, you're Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
but overcome a hill, right?
Yeah.
The general's not going to say, okay, everybody, I want you to now go up trail phase line Mike. Everybody, single file. We're going that. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
That's the objective. Everybody knows to take that objective. They've got their experience, their education, their environment, what they've got to work with to make that happen. We all bring
Mm-hmm.
something different for that. So we are in agreement for the accomplishment, the alignment for the accomplishment of the mission,
Mm-hmm.
but we may not be in quote unquote agreement in how we're going to get there because our experiences and our education and our role is going to be different to accomplish that. When you get operations orders, remember the op orders?
Yes.
You get the
Yes.
operations orders, right? The big mission order. Then you got to break that down to your team.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to worry about the rest of it.
That's
They just
right.
got to worry about their part. What is my part in this? This is all I got to focus on to conquer that mountain, because
Right.
it's a part of the puzzle, part of the piece that fills in. So learning and growing from other experienced experts in the world, I love the fact that you mentioned this. And people, I want you to understand, you have to have that spirit of discernment. Now, that's a lot of times that's a spiritual term, but the spirit of discernment is just gaining that insight, knowing I need to think about this. I need to configure this in my mind. How does this work for me? What is
Mm-hmm.
my experience that I can attach to this and make it even better? In fact, John even talks about, he wants us to take his material, takes his coaching and mentoring, and his wisdom, and make it better.
Yeah.
Make it better.
Yeah. And that discernment is also to know, is what I'm reading going to keep me on the path towards reaching that objective? Or is
Yes.
it going to take me off the path away from the objective?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to know, if you've got to be focused on knowing what the objective is, what your role is, what your skill set is, and staying in alignment with that day in and day out, practice day in, day out, growth day in, day out to
Mm-hmm.
reach that objective. If you do your part, everybody else will do their part. And good leaders know what everybody else's part is and can
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, you know what, Dennis, you're off path. You instead of going on Mike, you went over there on Oscar. Get back over here.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Mm-hmm.
off of Oscar, get back on Mike. Here's how you do it.
And for those of you that are non-military, one of the things we teach is, as coaches, is how to speak in a way that to connect with people.
Yes.
So if you were speaking with a military audience, Oscar and Mike make perfect sense.
Exactly.
Perfect sense. But Oscar and Mike is not the name of a couple of people. It's not Mike, what's that Channing Tatum guy? He did something, Mike something.
Yeah.
And then there's Oscar the Grouch.
That's
there's
who I was thinking of.
minds that come up to your mind, in your mindset. These are actual, phonetic alphabet, and we use these in a lot of mission calls and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, but that was just a little side note here. But we've learned. So let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
knowing all this, especially with the discernment and what you just explained, how important is it for people to understand the role of a life coach or a leadership coach in this particular instance, to be able to discern and identify what their skills and their talents and all that is. Because you said you've got to know what your skill sets are. And some people don't know that. So what would be the value of adding a coach to their arsenal?
Yeah, the value of a coach in this is really important, because the coach in this case would be an independent third party. And we were talking before about best friend's parent syndrome. When I was growing up, teenager in the 80s, unfortunately, I confess, there were times where my parents would tell me stuff, and it was like Charlie Brown's teacher. Yeah, mom. Yeah, mom. Got it, dad. Yep, dad. And, it was in one ear and out the other. But then I would go to my best friend's house, and we're hanging out and playing. And his mom would say something and it caught my attention right away. It's like, oh, whoa, saying the exact same thing my parents said.
Yeah.
But coming from her is like, okay, that's the truth. I need to, I got that. And I go home and tell my mom and dad. And I know my mom and dad at night would say, well, I'm glad he got it, but I don't know why he wasn't listening to us.
Yeah.
Same thing. A life coach kind of is that outside third party that maybe you're hearing things from multiple sources saying you have this skill, you have this strength, you have this ability, you have this talent. It seems like this is open, but you're hearing it from a familiar source. And with a coach, they see that. I mean, when I work with people, I'll let them know, hey, here's what based off of our relationship, here's some things that I've observed. Take it for what it's worth. This is just based off of our limited time together. Here's some things I hear from you. Here's some things that I see. Here's some strengths that I'm seeing jumping out, some values. I'm going to put them out there. What do you think? And it's like the light goes on. It's an aha moment. It's a safe space. And they realize it's almost like the Matrix when the weapons start coming out and the flashing by like this.
Yeah.
In those moments that happens. And so the value of a life coach is to bounce the things that you already know, you've already heard deep down inside, you really believe. You just need to hear it from an outside source that you trust to confirm it.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes that internal voice is a whole lot louder than the external voices that we have. And so you've got to discern which voices are you going to listen to and give credence to. And it really is. And when you have credibility, you gain the trust that and the credibility to speak into someone's life where they actually will listen. You got to have some evidence of that. I mean, don't speak about, you can't coach somebody through becoming financially responsible if you yourself are driving a Lexus and living in a trailer house. Okay. Not saying I've ever seen that somewhere, but you got to have that credibility. But and that is the incredible value of having a coach, is that third voice. Also a coach is going to hold you accountable. If you break it off with a coach, it's not bonded by blood. Okay.
Right.
It's bonded by an alignment to help you succeed. I always call when I have my coaching clients is they're not clients. We're partners. We are partners in your success. I develop partnerships. So it's a partnership agreement, that we fill out. And that lets them know, as a part of a partner in your success that you want to achieve, I'm going to coach you, get you down to the point where you say the aha moments, because the aha moments is what makes us think. And that gives us that wow. It gives us that feeling inside, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can do this. I was blocked because I was listening to the voices of other people. I always tell folks all the time, and they keep listening to the voices of the past. And I'm one to speak. My childhood was something else, and I won't go into great detail at all, not any detail. But for many years, it was their voices that held me back. It was the voice of a former spouse that held me back. It was the voice of some people did not believe in me. It was the voices of the bullies that kept me back from being successful, and I say now, as a coach and someone who's grown and much wiser these days, fortunately, wisdom did come with my age, so I did get that one. is that the voices, they're not even thinking about you anymore. The voices, the loudest voices in our minds is our own regurgitating what others have said about us. So it's you, it's not them. Because when I've talked to folks all the time, I said, well, my mom used to always say I was going to be worthless. Well, is she still saying that? Well, I hear her voice in my head. No, you hear you mimicking your mother's voice. She's not speaking about you. Is your mom still alive? No, she died 12 years ago. Really? Yet she's still speaking to you and holding you back. And that's the thing about a coach. A coach will hold you accountable. Now, Coach Jay, and I have it on some of my social media stuff, my LinkedIn probably too, leadership ain't for wimps. That's the first line on there. But, I'm a no BS coach. I'm a no BS coach. In other words, I will not allow you to continue to roll around in that smelly, stinky BS you've been rolling around in forever and wonder why you don't smell pretty. Wonder why your life is nothing but a bunch of crap, Yeah. And a coach will hold you accountable to that. Some handle it with kids' gloves. I don't as much. I'm very compassionate and candid with people. I hope you can get that from our conversations. But at the same time, I want to call you on it. So look, I think you got stinking thinking. I think what you're doing is you're not giving yourself a chance. I think what you're doing is you're finding every excuse in the world. When they start talking to me, I said, nope, that's an excuse, not a reason. There's a difference. There's an excuse and there's a reason. An excuse says, I don't want to do anything about it. A reason says, I can't do anything about it. There's got to be a reason why you can't. Okay. You're not going to play basketball. Okay. If you're only 4 foot tall. Okay. That's a reason. Okay. But if you're not playing basketball and you're 6'7" and athletic already, and I can't play basketball. No, that's an excuse. You just haven't put forth the effort. There are certain qualifications we have for things, but we disqualify ourselves long before giving ourselves an opportunity. So those are the BS statements that people make. And, so there's a great value coaching. Some people sometimes have a misunderstanding of what a coach is. They think it's a therapist. They think it's a counselor. Nope.
Right. Nope.
It ain't that, folks.
No, I liken a coach to, running. I'm a runner, run pretty much my whole life. And in the marathon, when you run a marathon, they have people holding up signs, not the fans on the side, but they're called pacers. And they're holding up a sign of the pace that they're running. And when you get in those groups, they'll talk to you, they'll encourage you, and they'll be with you. That we're running the same. A coach just comes alongside of you at this part of your race, and they run with you long enough until you take off, and then they go pick up the next person. And then leaders don't leave anybody behind. We learned this in the military. We don't leave anybody behind. In fact, if we finish our race, we go back to the slowest team member, make sure they finish the race.
We do. Remember the Army, our physical fitness tests?
Absolutely.
I started to say the Army one, but yeah, we did those, right? And when you got to the finish line, you cheered them on, or you went back and you ran beside them and said, come on, you got this, you got this, you got this. That's what coaches do. Exactly. And that's a great example. Great example, the marathon and the runners.
Yeah. At the end of the race, the other folks have moved on. They're getting ready. I was always late to work after those PT tests because I stayed behind and I didn't leave until the last person was there. And I would run with them coming in. I would go back and get them and let them know, hey, you aren't alone. Come on, let's finish this strong. You got more in the tank. Come on. You're not by yourself. Let's go.
That's right.
And
when you're running alone, you start thinking, I can't make it. I can't make it. I've been there, going on those 2 or 3 mile runs. I can't make it. I can't make it. Oh my gosh, my sides are hurting. Oh my gosh, my legs are burning. Oh my gosh, my lungs are burning, and I just can't make it. Can't make it. I'm getting too hot, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody comes along and starts to pass you, right? Yep. Boom. And they'll say, hey, come on. You got this. You got this. And the greatest motivator is when they slow their pace for you to catch up, and then you catch up together. Sometimes that's what coaching is. Sometimes you say you want to get to the finish line in 15 minutes. Okay. But your coach comes along and says, you're only doing about an 18-minute run. I'm going to slow down a little bit and we're going to go together. You may not make the 15, but by gosh, we're going to get you to 16.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get you
Absolutely.
and then the next time you're going to hit the 15 because I'm going to be here too. That's what a coach does. So,
And that's a servant leader. They meet you where
yeah.
you are. They
Yes,
meet you where
exactly.
you are, love you for who you are in that moment. But then the transformation one says, come on, I'm not leaving you here. Let's go. Pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a little bit left. Come on.
Take
Come
you where
on.
you want to go.
That's right. Because I like to run by myself, to be honest with you. They're just moments for me. But isolation over a long period of time is the greatest tool of the enemy to the mind, to the heart, to the soul, weapons to take people out.
Every time. So
Yep.
so share a little bit about the book, Endurance. Tell us how the book came about, the contributors, what your contribution was, and you want to share that?
Yeah. Yeah. The book was put together by Trish Andreasen. I got a copy here. There's one behind me over here. And it's a story about, it says endurance, going the distance from the valley to the mountaintop. I mean, what's the buzzword of today? Resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience is, to me, is synonymous to endurance. You got to have, in order to get resilience, you need endurance. And resilience is a result of endurance. And we all, in order to get to where we want to go in life, we got to do things we've never done, and we've got to do more than we've ever done, and we got to be consistent with it. And sometimes we see the stories in our lives as obstacles, but in order to win the race of life, you got to overcome the obstacles. We were talking beforehand, faith isn't real until it's tested.
Mm-hmm.
And endurance comes from a tested faith.
That's good.
People always talk about patience. I don't have any patience. Well, then you don't have any endurance, because the only way you're going to get patience is to have it tested, and patience tested and exercised is endurance. And so this book that Tricia put together and compiled with Edward Reed, he's a friend of ours, Ed
Yes.
Reed, myself, Desiree Anderson. There's 14 authors in this book that shared their individual stories of obstacles, like seeing dyslexia as a gift was Desiree. Powerful. Ed Reed shares 4 strategies to build his endurance through his story and working in schools with kids. And then my story is actually based off of running my first marathon. I shared with you right now, I'm a lifelong runner. You would think, oh, he's probably run a bunch of marathons. No, I didn't run my first marathon until almost 40 because I was afraid. I was afraid of this thing called the wall. The wall in the running community is the moment when you've run out of all of your energy, you've run out of everything, your legs are logs, and there's still it usually happens from mile 20 to 26.2. That last 10K is where everybody there's horrifying pictures of people hitting the wall that are now all over the place. But back then we didn't have that. But I'd seen pictures of people hit the wall, and I was afraid of it. I was afraid of the wall. And what helped me overcome the wall was, get this, Oprah Winfrey helped me run my first marathon.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, Oprah Winfrey, I'm reading Runner's World. It was the magazine. It was the Bible. It was the Sports Illustrated for the running community. It came out every month. One of my coach in college was a senior editor there. It was something I'd read all throughout my high school years. And so here I am getting my next edition of who's on the cover, Oprah Winfrey. I'm like, what's she doing on the cover? Sometimes they would do articles of celebrity runners. And I'm like, Oprah Winfrey's a celebrity, but a runner?
Yeah.
So I read the story. She ran the Marine Corps Marathon.
Really? Wow.
You're Army, I'm Air Force. The Marine Corps Marathon is like that's the marathon for military community. And she ran it and finished it. And I said to myself, in that moment right there on the spot, I said, if Oprah Winfrey, who isn't a runner, can run a marathon and finish it, I certainly can. That was the aha moment, the unblock for me. And I went from I can't do it and afraid of the wall to I can do it.
Yeah.
And I built a support system from it. And I talk about the support system. And I trained with somebody who had run marathons, who was a captain. I was an NCO at the time. He had run marathons. We agreed to run this one together. The first rock and roll marathon in San Antonio, we agreed to run it together. We ran it together, and we trained together, and we held each other accountable. And the day came, I ran the race, and I finished the race.
Mm.
I didn't exactly finish the way I wanted to. That's a story for another day, but I did it.
You finished.
I finished. And that's what's missing for most of us is we're at the starting line. We've done the training. We're there. The gun goes off or the gate opens, and then we watch everybody take off. And they run a great race, and we're still at the starting line. Nothing's holding us back except ourselves.
But fear.
So when we there's some people who don't get to the starting line. They get in the running community. That's a DNS, did not start.
Okay.
Most people, what they do is they start the race, but they get a DNF, did not finish.
Mm.
And why? Because they caved into fear, or they didn't anticipate the obstacles, or they let the obstacle push them back or push them off course. Or as you were describing, all of those negative thoughts, I'll never minute finish line, mile 1, I got 25 to go. Oh, and the next thing you know, one little pain turns into, I focus on that pain. The next thing I know, I pulled a hamstring, or I popped an Achilles, or I rolled my ankle, or I got a blister, and those little irritants that pop up. And we're just waiting for that to give us the excuse to DNF. And then we say, well, I didn't finish. But in order to get to the finish line, you've got to overcome the irritants. You got to overcome the obstacles. You got to persevere, go up, go through, and you got to visualize the finish line. That was the biggest thing that I learned running a marathon. 2 things that I picked up. Number 1 was, we hear begin with the end in mind. You got to visualize the finish line. You got to visualize yourself crossing your finish line in life, whatever that is, constantly, daily. And then the other, I picked this up from Olympic marathoner, and he also, I still believe he holds the American record for the marathon, Ryan Hall. He said this was the best piece of advice I've ever got in my running career was this. He said, run the mile you're in.
Oh, perfect. And that's so applicable to so much in life.
Exactly. Run the mile you're in. If you're at mile 1, don't think about mile 26 or mile 20 or mile 18. It's okay to, we got that plan, that strategic plan, but you're in mile 1. Focus on running mile 1 to mile 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Focus on, if you're listening to this, focus on, you woke up this morning, focus on end of day. Focus on this day, this 24-hour block. If you're visualize what the end of the year is like, the end of the week, end of the month, whatever that is for you, end of life, and where you're at career, with relationships, finances, whatever those are, run your mile you're in today. What do you need to do today, in this 24 hours, to run the day the way it should be run, that gets you to the finish line that you envision? And for me as a marathoner at that day, run the mile I'm in was focusing on the things I could control, my pace. Am I on pace? Focusing on, hey, I'm feeling really good. All right, we're running well. Keep going. Let's do this, Dennis. You've got this. Enjoy the moment. What's something I can say? Enjoy the moment. Be present. And just those things over and over and over again. And I would say it, run the mile you're in. Whenever the feed would say, oh, your calf's hurting a little bit. No, run the mile you're in. You've trained too much and you've trained too hard to allow that to stop you at this point. It's race day.
Mm-hmm.
You've prepared too much. Trust your training. Mm-hmm. Trust the process. You're getting to the finish line. If you have to crawl, if you've got to walk, whatever it takes, you're crossing the finish line. So we don't have time for that. Let's go.
Yeah, I say here, where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Boom.
Right. And we all do get distracted by those things, that can take us out of the race, regardless of whatever the race may be in our day-to-day lives. And I love how you're saying, you got to run the mile you're in. That is so perfect, because we're all in a mile. Are we walking it? Are we galloping? Are we running it? What are we doing? Are we letting everybody else pass us on the mile that we're in? And that's so huge.
Run your race.
Run your race. I've said that people live in the we learn from the past, live in the present, and lean into the future, right? Too many of us want to live in the past and we keep leaning backwards. We can't lean forward and backwards. Try it, folks. Stand up, lean forward, try to lean back, try to lean forward. It doesn't work that way, right? Well, not just our physical state, but our psychological state works the exact same way. They are in alignment. And if they're not in alignment, you're not going to get to that finish line. You're not living into your purpose. Adopt what you're hearing today and adapt it into your day-to-day life. What is your goal? What is the goal? You use running. I use football a lot of times when I talk about getting to a certain destination. Absolutely. And even if they're not winning, but the love of the game, but we all see that, if you want to get to the goal, you got to keep the goal in mind, right? But you got to run the yards you're in. Okay.
Yep.
You got to make that yard. And then you've got to have those milestones. Well, and we know in football, it's every 10 yards. In running, it's every 100 meters, 200 meters, quarter mile. In running in the military, it was every quarter mile I was looking at. In fact, I looked more at the mile, and then I started breaking down to a half mile, then the quarter mile. And that last quarter mile, I opened up. You change your strategy, because whatever mile you're in, you may have to strategize differently. You may have to change that up a little bit. You can't start the race the same way that you plan on ending the race. My very first race, we talk about running, when I was in high school, I ran the mile run. I did the cross country, and I did the 440 hurdles. I didn't know I was in junior high. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to jump the high hurdles in high school for the high schoolers. I was clearing those like a rabbit, and said, no, you got to lower them down. Well, then I was like way up above it. So I had to learn to stretch out and lower my profile. But when I ran my first mile run 4 times around the track, no relay, it's just me. Boom. I thought, I'm going to get out ahead of everybody on the start. You know what happened? I tuckered. And so I thought, I got to catch up. When I got to the finish line, I was behind and people were passing me. When I got there, you talk about that wall, I felt like I'd literally hit a wall. I passed out. They carried me over to the high jump mat, and I was laying out there. I thought I was dead, because I tried to maintain a pace that I started out with, because I thought I want to end first, so I better start first and I better stay first. And that just wasn't happening. The strategy changes, but you stay in the race. You stay in the race. Hey, look, if the first mile didn't work out for you, do an assessment, do an AAR, after action review. Okay. Yeah. What did I do well? What can I make a difference on? What can I change? What do I need to change? And then the next race, boom, you make those adjustments. And you do it again. You don't stop at the first race and say, well, I didn't win, I'm going to quit. No, you evaluate it, and you don't get a chance in the military to quit. You don't quit. But it's the same way in life, and so stay in the mile that you race, stay in the mile that you're in. I like that. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So let me close with this. DNF, you need 2 DNFs. If you did not finish, you know why most people don't finish is fear. So you need a different DNF. Do not fear.
Ooh.
Do not fear, because if you let fear win, you will DNF. You will not finish. So I need to get some of those.
I need to get some of those party favors, that make a lot of noise, and clap, 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 and the ring, ring. I need to get the whoop. when stuff like that happens. I'm going to go to Party City today, and I'm going to purchase a bunch of that stuff for this podcast because that is so good. And you know what that is? That's perspective. That's our perception. That's changing our perception. That's having a paradigm shift in our mind. Anything we think we cannot achieve, change the way. Hey, who said it best? Wayne Dyer. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at begin to change.
Isn't that interesting?
It's so amazing, and you can fill in the blank. Change the way you blank, and the blanks you look at begin to change. Change the way you speak, and the way you speak begins to change. Change the way you love, and the people you love begin to change. Change the way you lead, and the people you lead begin to change. And it's all about that. What's the key word that you're having problems with and trouble and challenge with? Change perspectives on that. It's kind of like the beach ball, and we use this in the disc, and I think your disc also. And when you use a beach ball, I can show you a beach ball. Okay, well, I'll show you a baseball. I don't have a beach ball here, but I've got a baseball.
Yeah,
official ball for the Texas League, right? Boom. Okay. You see that, but all I see is a bunch of stitching on my side. I said, no, it's not. It's not an official Texas League ball by Rawlings. All I see is that, right? I use this a lot when I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
But if I get on the other side of me and see through your eyes, I can see what I need to see. Well, sometimes the eyes that we're looking through is the eyes of the negative person we've been holding on to forever. We got to get on the other side of that. We got to get on the other side of our perspective on life and realize that we're looking at it through lenses that somebody else put on us and we continue to wear. Change the glasses. Put on some rose-colored glasses once in a while. The world will change. Take them off and experience reality. Sometimes it takes that. Sometimes you need to take off the poor glasses, put on some good glasses, then take them off. So, life's not near as bad as I thought it was. I just need to have a paradigm shift.
Absolutely. See the possibility and quit focusing on the impossible. Everything in life was impossible at some point.
Yes, this was. And being a man,
you and I having this conversation was an impossibility at one point.
Until we made it possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the old me, and I'll take this one because I'll share with you something I've shared, folks. I say that God takes when we see something, we think it's improbable. The old me would have thought, oh, this is improbable. I can't do this. It's improbable. In other words, it's beyond impossible, right? It's improbable. It'll never happen. And I believe that as men of faith, I give it to God. God takes our improbables. God takes our impossibles. So I'm going to just change improbable to impossible. God takes our impossibles, turns them into possible. But he doesn't do it for you. He gives it to you. And when you give it back to you, you see the possibilities and how you keep it, God in the picture. For me, it's, keep God in the picture. God, I can't do this. Boom. Aha moment. Oh, it is possible. Great. Now, with him, I make it inevitable. With God, it's inevitable. But you've got to change your perspective. You got to change your source of energy, your source of what are you putting into your mind? Junk in, junk out. That's the way it works, folks.
Yeah,
junk in,
100%.
Junk out. And so I think this podcast, and it's my prayer and God within it, that this podcast, this episode and all the episodes to come and before this are going to be utilized in such a way that they touch people's lives. They make them laugh. They live their life just a little bit better, change perspectives, and they learn to lead others in such a way that loves others, and this is a God thing here, and I think it's going to work out great. Well, you got any last minute things you want to share with us, Dennis? I've got your website on the bottom, folks. If you want to check out that book, Endurance, and you want to see what Dennis does and the services he has for you to offer and learn more about Dennis, go to that website right there. And I'll also be putting in the talk notes ways to reach him on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, his website, which is tagged on to the John Maxwell group. I see that. And And so you can reach out to him that way as well. So I'll make sure I have those in the talk notes down below. If you're watching this live, yeah, it's not there yet. Give me a little bit of grace, folks. I got to put it in. Okay. But hope you enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this, Dennis. Thank you so much for saying yes to doing this podcast. I knew the audience would get so much, as well as me. I've gained so much from this, and hope we can do it again, especially when you get that next book written.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay, thank you so much for having me. And, I want to go back to that definition of servant leadership again, because everybody needs to get this. We all influence somebody. John, in leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. We all have influence. And here's a way to make it count. Meet people where they are. Love them for who they are. But then touch their lives in a way they're not the same from the time they met you and beyond. So love them for who they are, meet them where they are, but don't leave them where they are.
Yes.
Make them different. I promise you, if you're different, they'll be different.
That could be the title for this podcast, actually, that whole line. That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. All right, my friends. Well, God bless you. Dennis, stay online for a few seconds. I'm going to end the recording, and then we're going to head on out. But, folks, let me tell you something. Check out Dennis. Go to this. And also go to the website down below, Enrich Leaders. Learn a little bit more about Dennis and connect with him. Follow him on social media. You will not be disappointed. You will not regret that. And also, let me put this up here. Make sure to follow this. If you're watching us on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Jay Goff Morning Show. I'm Jay Goff. And subscribe to that. And if you have a story to tell and you're an influencer and you're making a difference in the world, reach out to me, shoot a message, and I'd like to connect with you. And let's see if we can't get you on a podcast in the future too, because you got a story that the world needs to hear. And you can make a difference in someone's life. All right. Get up, get out, and get at it is what I always like to say. Okay. Let's get at it. So you can DNF well. Okay. Or no. DNS did not start. Okay.
DNF
never mind.
did not finish.
I just did not finish, but you want to finish well. Okay. So I'm not editing this. This is the bloopers live. Okay. They stay
DNS. DNS. Do not stop.
There we go.
Do not stop.
Do not stop. DNS. Do not stop. DNS. All right. Okay.
Run the mile you're in.
Yes. So many good points. So many good tips. All right, my friends. All right. We're going to get on out of here. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. Dennis, once again, I love you, man. Thank you. I love you as a brother. Thank you for your service to this wonderful nation that it truly is. And thank you for being an influencer for leadership. We all need that more and more these days. And so thank you for walking that mile.
My pleasure. Right. Thank you, brother.